So I work for Vector Marketing, which is
Aha.
the marketing arm for Cutco Cutlery. And I, so do you want me to like explain like what I do now? Because I don't do like when you say that,
Yeah,
the
people
initial,
think the door-to-door type. Yeah,
yeah, that's not what I do.
obviously. And so what,
We'll get to that.
in your words, what is, the early, college basic sales
So
associate job? What, and because you did that. So what
yes,
is
yeah.
that?
So, okay. So, literally on like so I went to ECU and my first day on campus. No, 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 no. Was it my first day? I don't know. It was definitely the first week. It was definitely September. Um, you know how they have like certain just things that are affiliated with the university that the university basically like gives its stamp of approval to essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was like this and people who are familiar with ECU know that I can't remember exactly where, but like right in front of the Starbucks in the middle of the campus where there's like the bookstore and there's like a mall, there's like a big, anyways, that's where I was. And they had all these tables set up for like different like internships and different like things you could get involved with as a student. I'm not going to call it a job fair because that's not what it was, but it was like a activities fair. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all schools have that.
Yeah, so anyways, so they had a table there, Cutco did, and I was like, what is this? And they were like, well, you can get paid $10 an hour and you can get internship credit. And I was like, or like credit, like class credit. And I was like, all right. So I went to the interview, checked out. Long story short, started doing it, fell in love with it. I did get two full semester. So like you know how like you like oh gosh, it's been a while since I've thought about credits and courses and all of that. But you know how like a class equals like 12 credits or something like that. So like the each so I worked with Cutco all through college, and each semester that I did it, I just had to like write an essay about my experience and answer some questions, and I literally got an elective credit each semester. So that was 4 electives that I didn't have to actually take, which was cool. So in my mind, at first, I was like, well, that's a way to get, I'm all about like, let's take the let's take the fast lane to wherever it is we're going, you know. So that was the first thing, and then a misconception about it is that it was door to door. It's definitely not door to door.
Right.
It's direct sales. So just like people in the South, your mama at some point probably sold Mary Kay, basically just like that, except the college kid version of that. And then Cutco, the actual knives are awesome. They're American made. They're great. But anyways, moving right along, I did that through college. Like it's basically the vector, and you would agree with this, I'm sure. The vector marketing college kid community is literally um like the Greek system a little bit. It's
Yeah.
very much like a fraternity or sorority, and there's a lot of like-minded people, and it's basically it's just there's a lot of debauchery, there's a lot of fun, and it's just sales, and like you learn a lot of great stuff throughout the process. And I mean, I did not know that I was going to still be working for the same company like almost 10 years later. Now, I don't do the same thing that I did then. We'll get to that in a minute. But um, even if you were just talking about the pocket of time where I did the entry level sales rep position that you get college credit for as a student, that experience gave me so many things and skills, and just like ready that right there was the best education I've ever received out of all the education I've ever received. Just because you were taught how to literally live in the real world, think on your feet, and make decisions in real time. And as we know, that is something that with each generation of 18-year-olds, they somehow get less able to do that with each generation that like you know what I mean? Like
Hey, you're talking to two managers. We get
yeah.
it.
You do, you get, yeah. So like it's Yeah, that prepared me for the real world more than literally anything else ever has. But anyways, do you want me to continue with what I do now, or
What do you do now, Laura?
So basically, I sell closing gifts to realtors and business gifts to company owners. So, for example, a real estate agent, when they sell a house, they give a closing gift once the deal is done to the buyer. And usually it's like a bottle of wine or a gift card to Lowe's or something like that, or a plant or something stupid, right? So instead of that,
you give them the world's finest set of cutlery.
Yeah. The world's finest set of cutlery. So we take a knife and we put it in a gift box, and then we engrave the blade with the real estate logo. Like, for example, let's say it's Keller Williams and it says, "With gratitude, comma, your realtor for life, Caegan Jackson, Keller Williams, Atlanta," whatever. And then they get it as a closing gift. And so when somebody sells a house, there are like a million realtors out there. The realtor's goal is that in 5 years, when they're ready to sell that house, that they don't go work with a different realtor, that they come back to them. So basically, what the closing gift is doing is you're giving them something that they actually pick up and use. Everybody uses knives every day, and then it has their name on it, so they have that top of mind awareness. And just the simple fact of them being able to put their hands on their contact information is the difference between them calling them back and just Googling a new realtor because they can't even remember their name. And then another thing is that the gifts are 100% tax write-off for realtors. Usually a realtor can only write off $25 of what they spend on a closing gift. Now, usually realtors spend some, depending on the level of luxury of the home, a realtor is going to spend anywhere from $100 to $5,000 on a closing gift, depending. Now, that's a huge range, obviously. But I would say average, like let's say average, like $250,000 to $500,000 home, that's going to be like a $300 to $500 closing gift, right? And so they can spend, and usually for a gift, they can only write off $25 per gift of that cost. So with these, you can write off 100% of it because it goes under marketing and advertising because their information is engraved on the product. So it is a marketing tool, really, that just so happens to work as a practical gift. So NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, actually rated Cutco closing gifts the #1 closing gift in America that a realtor can give. So it's proven to actually drive their retention up. So that is what I do now. I basically go, like, for example, a day in the life last week. I was in Savannah, Georgia, at what is called a mega agent event. So basically Keller Williams as a company for the region of like Georgia and North Carolina, put on this huge, 3-day conference with keynote speakers and all that jazz. And so there's probably 500 realtors in the room. I was one of the sponsors of the event. So I get to set up a table with the Cutco closing gifts in the room. And then they give me 10 minutes to speak at some point during the agenda during the day to the whole room. And so what I do mostly is public speaking, which I love. And then basically, like, if they want to come talk to me about the closing gifts after what they just heard me say on the stage, then they come over to the table and then I sell them closing gifts in bulk. And that's what I do in a nutshell, essentially.
Awesome. Couldn't have been said better. Laura,
I tried to condense it as much as I could.
Laura, do you like your job?
I love my job.
It's fun?
It is a lot of fun, especially because my love language is gifts, and I literally sell gifts for a living, which is cool, because I'm a nerd. So
you enjoy it? You wake up in the morning? You're excited to go to work every day?
Yeah. I mean,
So question, how did that get, is your main, I get Vector is the company you work for, I guess.
They sign my paychecks, yes.
Okay. Are they based in Charlotte? Is that
Vector is based well,
It's
first of
only in
all,
New York.
yeah, correct. Yeah, the Cutco is made in only in New
Everybody
York.
knows that.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Because when I Cutco and all, like they would come, and I had a couple friends in high school that would
Oh
do it.
yeah,
I
oh
was
yeah.
always like, what?
Everybody
Like,
does.
yeah.
Everybody does. Yeah.
I was like, I would be so nervous to just walk up to somebody's door and just like, hey, I'm gonna sell you a bunch of knives.
Well, yeah,
Well,
it's not door to door. It's
Well,
through
yeah.
referrals, and I mean, you have to
So
establish
they know
contacts.
they know you're coming. You don't just like ring somebody's doorbell and say, "Hey, you want to buy these knives?" Like that's absolutely. I mean, can you imagine if that's actually what it was? There would be like a killing on the news every other day. I mean, there's no, that would not be sustainable at all.
And that's one of the big misconceptions is like it's a legitimate job, and like you have to learn how to build a client base, and I mean call people and build I mean it's legitimate. I mean, in that sense. So on that, let me ask you this, Laura. Why do you think vector marketing gets why do you think they have a bad reputation? And I don't know if it's all bad, but there are so many common misconceptions and myths or whatever you want to call it. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting. It depends. So, okay. First of all, if you know the facts, meaning like if you've actually done the job like you have, for example, you know that it's legitimate, you know that there's nothing shady going on, all of that. However, sales is definitely not for everybody, and it is definitely a competitive environment. So then you couple that with the fact that the average age of the entry level job and what they go after is college students, because you can get, I also got a scholarship while I was in college by selling knives. And so that's another thing that like draws a college kid in, is like the concept of like wanting to, you get resume experience, you can make some money. I mean, I literally paid for I took out student loans to go to college, but I paid for half of my tuition with just money that I made from selling knives. But I mean, like, so it would have been double the amount of loan. But anyways, so, the pitch to the college kid is you make a lot of money, invaluable resume experience, chance to earn a scholarship, and you can get college credit. Like, sign me up, especially when you're 18. But what happens is that if somebody has a bad experience and they're 18, 19 years old, and then they go tell their friends like, oh, screw that place, like, when really it was like, no, you just like didn't follow the directions and do it right. And that happens all the time. And then also there's something to be said for the concept of like, how do I say this? You would agree that like, so you probably met, because you worked with Cutco before COVID happened, right?
Oh yes, COVID sort of ruined my well, I wouldn't say ruined my Cutco career, but that like was what.
Oh yeah, it was a pivot. Everybody was like, what the heck? Yeah, but it's completely virtual now. Like they literally don't even.
Right.
So, anyways, so you met a lot of people in person.
Oh yeah.
But I mean people who worked for Vector, like managers and stuff. You met a lot of those people in person. Okay. Yeah. So would you agree that not every person who is in a position of power within the company is created equal or of the same caliber?
Yeah, I would say so.
So I hate to say the whole like, few bad apples thing, but also like people there is like people get promoted pretty quickly, and there definitely have been some instances where like a 19-year-old kid is managing a bunch of 18-year-old kids, and like things have a tendency to like not exactly work out the best.
Oh yeah.
When a
lot of them get in big financial trouble because of that.
Right. So like, that's pretty much, does that answer your question? Like the actual, I mean, there's nothing shady at all about
No.
the way that the company does business. I mean, I wouldn't still be here 10 years later if it wasn't, if that was the case. And I mean, colleges would not at NC State, you can literally get a full internship credit for taking the Cutco training. And so, colleges would not endorse anything that was like actually sketchy. But I just think the fact that there's so many young people and it's a very competitive kind of like dog eat dog, like sales environment, which is very not for everybody. And so I just think it's easy for some people to just like have a bad experience and then like badmouth, so that, not saying that I like don't believe people if they said they had some crazy shit happen, but it's just a lot of young people. And also there's a lot of dating in the company. Everybody
certainly isn't there, Laura?
So what I'm saying, like, do you see what I mean now when I said it's like a fraternity and a sorority?
Yeah.
Like, fraternities and sororities get bad raps too. Okay.
But there are wonderful aspects to those things.
Right. So it's kind of the same thing as that.
I'm learning a lot about Cutco on this episode.
You said what now?
I'm learning a lot about Cutco.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you thought what most people thought, that like, oh, that was just some dumb like thing that kid from my hometown did. And for that kid from your hometown, it probably was because they weren't. Look, you have to be a born salesman to some degree. Mm-hmm. And now what I do think they do.
I got it honest from Eugene.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I think what they do is one thing I'll never forget when they trained me, they said Cutco is not an art, it is a science. If you follow the directions, you will make money. And it was true.
Read, cut, and smile, baby. Read, cut, and smile.
But that applies to people who are, to some degree, natural born speakers and sales people. I mean, am I wrong?
No. Yeah. And
like
right.
The people that don't make it and make the YouTube videos and talk about how it's a scam and all this stuff.
Yeah.
They didn't do what they want it to be a 9 to 5, like, or they want not even that. They want it to be like a regular, like part-time, like college, high school job where you work at Dairy Queen and you scoop ice cream.
Right.
And
that's not what it is.
You just get paid for standing around most of the time.
Right.
Like, there is no standing around and riding the clock with Cutco. There are there are no report cards. There are paychecks. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like you get paid by working your butt off and by, pick up the phone and start dialing.
Yeah, it is. We're big Wolf of Wall Street fans.
I was going to bring it up, so you can go ahead and say it.
The scene where he, like, these little magic black boxes of telephones, like that scene, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I know, Caegan, I know you know what I'm talking about, but Spencer, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. That scene literally could have been shot in a Cutco office. I'm not lying at all.
And that's the thing when you talk about it being a fraternity, because it's like, fraternity brothers are usually seen as like these like dumb kids like who have, like, can't think for themselves and they blindly follow orders. Like, there is sort of a fair comparison with Cutco there with like the Wolf of Wall Street, because like it's just these young people that get so riled up. Like, you have your managers and they're doing the exact same thing that Jordan Belfort did. He got them hyped up to go make money.
Except there's no scam happening. That's the key difference.
Right. Yeah, well, that was a literal pump and dump scheme, and he went to jail for it. Yeah.
Right.
And there's not quite as much cocaine use in the office either.
The culture is similar. Yeah. There's no coke. Well,
in the office.
I'm kidding. God knows. There's no drugs and strippers. Okay, but the same, like, just, if your girlfriend thinks you're a fucking loser, pick up the phone and start dialing. I want you to solve your problems by becoming rich. Like, that's a legitimate.
That is how it is, and everybody's standing up like, yeah. It's like, now who's gonna win that trip to Hawaii? And then, like, they start fighting each other, and like it's just like Wolf of Wall Street. It is, but it's like insane.
But also like experiencing, and then like trips to Vegas, like way before you're like I mean, just it and there, you take that with a grain of salt. Like there are some, there's some definitely like some potential danger that can happen with an
Sure.
18-year-old experiencing like that level of, so, but like, it also was like, I mean, legitimately, like when I was a freshman, I mean, I felt like a god. Like,
oh,
and I mean that, and that's a bad. That's it's kind of that says more about me than it does like the.
I don't think it's a bad thing though.
Yeah, but like I mean, just the culture was just this like all hype all the time. All hype all the time.
Yeah,
everything is hype, and I thrived on that.
Oh yeah, when I first got started, obviously, like I love to dress up. You know that.
Yeah.
So
I knew you were gonna love it. I was just over here like,
number one, the fact that I got to work at a job where you were required to wear like a coat and tie. I was like, this is it. And then the way you make money is by talking to moms and like persuading them. I was like, this is my bag.
Right.
This is my bread and butter.
It was made for you, like literally.
But like, I mean, on all seriousness, when I first started the job and I first started making money and it was rolling and I kind of figured it out, like I felt 10 feet tall.
Right.
And it's not even like
literally
a arrogance thing. Like
right.
that I've told people that was maybe the first time in my life I felt like a somebody. Really?
Yeah.
Do you
100%? Yep.
And a lot of times what Cutco does is they sort of, I don't know if they recruit, but they end up getting kids that they sort of take misfits and turn them into millionaires. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's the attraction. See, somebody that comes from, well, I mean, let's just take like, I mean, we'll just take me, for example. I didn't grow up with money by any means. Okay. Now, I went to school surrounded by people with money. Okay, so that creates like not like I didn't resent them or anything, but it's just like an awareness of like, you know what I mean? And so it was like you take somebody who hasn't had something and then you give them that something through way of them earning it. I mean, obviously,
yeah, because you do earn it.
Oh yeah, I mean you're gonna earn it, and also like I just have a competitive nature, and there was something that was so thrilling about the like you won't make it, like you can't like like it like we'll see if you can make it, like you know what I mean, like right. And that just like tell me I won't do something and damn if I ain't gonna do it, like right. So but yeah, it definitely like was the first. I agree, it was the first. I was 18. It was the first time in my life where I felt like I was able to step into alignment with who I truly am, and it was the first space that allowed me to explore that part of myself, and it just kind of flourished from there. So
we're gonna send this recording to Cutco, and this is gonna be a commercial and a
well, I don't work for them anymore, but
yeah.
Even so, like most people that don't work for them anymore will like
you should
bash them.
Caegan, if you want, you can send me a copy of this, and I can send it to our to Scott Dennis. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure he would love it.
Is Scott Dennis the one that does? Is he the one that does the podcast, the Cutco podcast?
No, that's another dude. But I'm sure he would love it too.
That's a podcast.
Yeah, there's a guy who used to sell Cutco who like, I mean, he hasn't in like years or but he's also just like a really important like higher up, and he just started doing a podcast where he like interviewed like Cutco's most successful people, and it's I can't remember what it's called, like I think
Changing Lives Selling Knives.
I was about to say I think it's literally called Changing Lives Selling Knives.
I was about to like, what is he like? Does he talk about the different knives that come out every week?
No.
It's like
the experience of the person and how they grew as a person through their experience. And I mean, there's some great episodes on there, for sure.
Well, Laura, let me stop you there because you've led me right into my next point here. How beautiful is that?
Revolutions.
Revolutions. Bring us 2 absolute martinis and then 2 more after that. What what would you say are the greatest lessons you've learned working for vector marketing? And that could be personal, or I mean, as a professional, as as a salesperson, whatever.
You want me to pick one or just like?
Well, whatever. You
I
tell
mean,
me.
oh my God. Um, I think like early on, one of the most important lessons that I learned was how to sell yourself like authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to that sentence, you're like, isn't that an oxymoron, like selling yourself authentically?
No.
But essentially, like literally whatever job or career you go into, you're going to be selling yourself. If you're a doctor, you're selling people on trusting you with their health. If you're a teacher, you're selling their parents on why they should trust you with their kids' education. Literally whatever it is that you do, you are going to have to be selling yourself in some way. And if you're going to work with people in your career, which a lot of careers, you work with people, if somebody does business with you or not, it comes down to, do they trust you or not? Like, so essentially just like one of the first things I learned it was an invaluable lesson to learn at 18 was just how to show up, essentially, how to literally just show the fuck up to life. I don't mean like in like a certain outfit of, although like, hey, but like, just like how to literally show up in your presence, being sure of yourself, authentic, and just like, let's go. Like, does that make sense?
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Laura, what do you think it takes to be a great salesperson?
I think that what you touched on, which was like, I do think that all the great salespeople, and I mean, like, I'm talking about like the famous, like world famous, greatest salespeople you can think of, they were all obviously like born with it a little bit,
mm-hmm.
but it is definitely a skill set that can be honed. And I think the most important thing is authenticity. Somebody, like when you think of a salesman, that word, sometimes you think of like the sleazy car salesman, and that is the opposite of authenticity, right? It's like pushy, right, and like whatever. But a good salesperson essentially is just explaining something in a way that makes sense to the person, and then letting them know that they can trust you with helping them make that decision. So, I mean, I really think the number one thing that separates like great salespeople from good salespeople or just average salespeople is just literal like authenticity.
So you don't think that being a great salesperson is something that can be taught? Like you have to.
I do think that it can be, presentation skills can be taught. Public speaking can be taught, but
Let me say this because I said this earlier. I think it can be taught, but it can only be taught well to the people with a natural ability. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Because I can teach an introvert how to sell, and they can know all the the technical things, but they don't have the
it factor.
Yeah.
What we call in Cutco, we call those intangibles.
Intangibles, yes. People with bad feel, Spence.
Yep, bad feel. Don't know how to read a room.
Right, you gotta be able to read a room, man.
Laura, what does it mean to you to be a woman in the world of sales and business?
Wow, that is a question and a half right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
coming from two straight white males.
I love it. What does it mean to be well, first of all, I think I want to say this. I am so blessed, and definitely it is not lost on me how blessed I am to be a woman in sales in 2022 and not like 1982 or 1962 or something like, I mean, 1962, I would have been a fucking secretary. Like it wouldn't have even been a thing, but like So I mean, let's start there. Like it is a blessing, and it gets better all the time. But I will say, kind of like what you touched on earlier when you were like, I get to talk to moms, which is like your bread and butter. Like you have a natural, like, moms love you. Moms love you. You just have that little face, and they just want to pinch your cheeks. Like you got that whole, like, and so I'm gonna backtrack what I'm trying to say here. Basically, like, yeah, I think that there's like a certain confidence that women can get away with in sales and in business, that if a man did it, it would come off as arrogance. Does that make sense?
I think that's fair.
Like there's a certain level that women can just kind of like, you know what I'm saying? Like I do,
and that's interesting because typically I would think that people would say, as a woman, you're at a disadvantage, just in general. But what you're saying is, I mean, you sort of have advantages that men don't.
Well, yeah,
naturally.
because if you think about it, like a woman's energy, a feminine energy, is like a nice place to be, and like and inviting, and it's non-threatening, right? So like it's kind of like a ninja sale. Like it happens before they even know what happened. You know what I mean? Whereas like a man salesman, like they see you coming a mile away. I'm not saying a man can't do the same thing, but it's just people have less of a wall up when a woman is selling to them than a man, at least in my experience. So
right on.